Look, I spoke yesterday about that death in Essex, England, of Sir David Amess, a distinguished member of the House of Commons, stabbed multiple times during a regular Friday meeting with his constituents. Scotland Yard has formally declared the incident as terrorism after a 25-year-old was arrested. When I spoke a couple of weeks ago to Peggy Grandy, she argued, as did I, that the abandonment of Afghanistan to the Taliban may set in train what is now being described by some as a lone wolf attack. But responsible figures in Britain today are saying it is nothing like a lone wolf attack. Instead, Hugo Micheron, a doctor in political science and the author of the 2020 book, The French Jihadism, where Micheron interviewed 80 jihadists serving time for terror offences in French prisons. They explained to Micheron their journey from disenchantment or delinquency to Islamism and how it gave them purpose, motivation and fellowship. But as Gavin Mortimer writes today ominously, quote, above all, it imbued in the jihadists a hatred for Western society, a contempt shared by British, Belgian, Norwegian and all European extremists, unquote. The question must be asked, therefore, where will they strike next? And remember, this assassination of a British MP came 2 days after an Islamic attack in Norway and raises concerns that the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan may lead to a resurgence of similar attacks. Let's go to Peggy again this week. Peggy, thank you for your time. What has been the reaction in America to this, and are our intelligence resources equal to nailing these people before the event?
Well, thank you always, Alan, for having me on. And what happened in the UK, of course, is a horrific tragedy. And our elected officials should expect to get verbal assaults, but they should never expect to have physical attacks on them. And I'm afraid that that will make our politicians less accessible and less willing to engage with their constituents in the future. But how that connects to Afghanistan is we know that terror is on the rise there. American military leaders told us as much, that terror groups are reconstituting there. And we know that when terrorism is left unchecked, it will continue to expand and recruit all around the world. And so Americans and the world should be very worried about this, especially when American military brass is saying that it's of grave concern to them.
Absolutely. See, I note, for example, that the Afghanistan girls football squad have fled Afghanistan after the country was taken over by the Taliban. They'll hopefully be relocated in the UK in the next few weeks. But the 35 young players and their families, about a total of 130, missed the evacuations, but it said they were in a hugely dangerous, life-threatening position, women, should they remain in Afghanistan. Peggy, just before we go to other things, what a dreadful thing that in the modern world, this is how people are forced to live in the face of a nation of terrorists, which, I mean, I suppose that brings us to President Biden again. I mean, you wonder how long the free world can survive this stuff. I suppose he'll be going to Glasgow if they speak to him or let him speak. I don't think he wouldn't know the difference between carbon and carbon dioxide. He didn't know, I just got to share this with our viewers, the name of our Prime Minister. Well, now he wants to thank his special envoy for ports, Joe Biden. Listen to this.
And I especially want to thank Joe Porcari. I think Joe's done one heck of a job, my special envoy specifically on ports, who's been working this issue with all the stakeholders for the past several weeks.
Oh, yes, except, Peggy, the special envoy for ports, Joe, is actually John Porcari, not Joe. I mean, what on earth? This is the point, isn't it? This is the problem with the West. The terrorists and everyone can see this weakness, can't they?
They can. And a weak America makes for a dangerous world. And we see that on display. And I can't imagine what the Chinese are thinking when they see a clip like that.
Yeah, I mean, the New York Post story, I want to talk to you in weeks down the track about this, but a year ago revealed that Hunter Biden, the president's son, sold influence while his father was vice president. We'll look at that another time because that story's now been validated, isn't it?
It has been. In fact, they're saying that he shared a bank account with his father, the president or the vice president at the time. We know he's had long, deep ties to China, and we know that he's hosting art shows, quote unquote, for Democratic donors. And I can't imagine the Trump children getting away with anything like this.
Yes. And look, just a quick one. The State Department's Inspector General, I see, is launching a series of investigations into the Biden administration's last diplomatic moves in Afghanistan. And we're told the reviews will focus on the State Department's special immigrant visa program. Peggy, a story that the Biden administration is going to exempt some Taliban-era Afghan civil servants. These are people who worked for the Taliban, and Biden is going to allow them into America, be exempted from terror-related bans. What are Americans making of this?
Well, Americans, of course, want responsibility and want accountability for the hasty and chaotic withdrawal. We hope that the Inspector General will look into that, but we don't have great confidence that this administration will actually investigate itself. And Americans, and rightly so, are worried about the people left behind. And brave men and women are still going behind enemy lines to bring out people who have been left behind, often being blocked by this very administration for not doing their own job and for leaving these people behind. But to your point, I actually want to know, who are the people we brought here? This administration brags about bringing 124,000 people in the largest evacuation ever out of Afghanistan. But when you look at the numbers, only 6,000 are American citizens, and about the same number are SIV holders and allies. So who are the rest of the people?
Who are they?
We need answers. Joe Biden is not talking about this. He's either ignoring it or has forgotten about it, but the American people have not forgotten about it and demand answers.